Aaron, you've recently released your book, Define Yourself. Is this something you had burning for a while or more of a sudden itch that needed to be scratched?
Yeah, so Define Yourself started when I moved to Sydney in 2014. So my PR girl at the time was like, you need to start writing about the journey of KX. But I'd shelved it multiple times over the years, mainly because I hadn't felt like I'd finished my journey that the book kind of needed for me to finish it. Like Selena came on board as CEO in 2018, so I was like, great, now I can talk about where I'm sidestepping to in the business. COVID came along in 2020, so it's like publishers are like, you need to write a whole nother chapter on that and the experiences there. A lot of innovation came through in those years as well. So yeah, so I started in 2014, shelved probably 10 or 11 times, and it wasn't until I actually broke my ankle 12 months ago, almost to the day, and I was sitting for obviously a long time in recovery. So that was like, right, now's the time. Last December was the time to really to finish it off and tick the box.
Did the process of writing the book make you reflect on any experiences and see them in a different light?
Reflect 100%. I mean, the whole book is about the journey of KX, the highs and lows of business, the way I was brought up personally, and how I got into business and founded the style of dynamic Pilates and started KX Pilates as well. The expensive lessons that I made, the people is so important in my journey, because without the people who have been by my side from the early beginning all the way up to the franchise partners that join our brand, we just wouldn't be where we are today. So 100% reflection. I'm always reflecting those. So in terms of, did it highlight anything that I might have done differently or whatever, I already knew that. Doing interviews and podcasts and that sort of stuff, it's a common question of what would you do if you had your time over. So, it didn't really bring any lights to it, but yeah, it was certainly great to reflect.
What's something that felt like a failure at the time, but later turned out to be a success or for the best?
Yeah, so one of the key things I talk about is innovating either external to your core or internal. And when I first started franchising KX Pilates in 2013, I got my first couple of franchise fees in. And instead of putting that money back into the brand to grow, the entrepreneurial spirit in my brain light bulbs started going off, and I was traveling a lot. This was pre-kids for me, so I was traveling a lot in America and Europe, and I came back going, right, let's start multiple brands under the KX banner. So we opened 6 ballet bar studios under KX. We opened a KX Cycle brand similar to Soul Cycle in the US. Launched a retreats company out of Bali, taking clients there multiple times a year, and also an assisted yoga brand as well. So many different things, which were all successful in their own right. But one, I was never really passionate about any of them. My love was still for dynamic Pilates. But two, it took me off the core of the business. So, probably looking at 3 years, over probably $500,000. And the energy and time spent on those, I always think back and go, they weren't failures, but in terms of if I'd put that time, energy, and effort back into the KX Pilates brand, where would I be today? So it wasn't until 2016 when I went to the International Franchise Conference over in Phoenix, America. I listened to the CEO of a barber shop over there, similar to like a Just Cuts. They had 2,500 units in America, and he just got up and talked about innovating within your brand, and that all they do is cut hair, but they do it well and they innovate within it, and that's how they grow, that's how they develop. I literally came home from that trip. I debadged all of the other brands and sold them off, and then solely worked on KX Pilates ever since. And it's been an exponential lift since then.
With a young family, life can be a hamster wheel of activities. What measures do you take to keep balance between family time and focusing on business?
Yeah, so I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And for me, I'm very grateful in the position that I'm in, because I did step out of that CEO role 5 years ago to focus more on my family, more of a founder role, more about relationships, innovation, international. So the things that I really, really love doing, where running a franchise was something that I realized I wasn't very good at, nor did I love doing. So it's all about being present in the moment. So, I don't work incredibly hard these days like I did. I work incredibly hard on my family. So I'm very much, because my wife actually, we moved up to the Sunshine Coast 2 years ago, and it was only 6 months in. She's like, we need a KX Pilates studio up here. There's not one. So now she's back in the thick of it, running a studio with her best friend here. So again, throws a bit more responsibility of the family on me, but which I absolutely love. But being present when you're with the family is huge. A big thing for me was I turned all notifications off on my phone. I don't get notified for an email, for a WhatsApp message. It's literally a phone call and a normal message. I'll get to my phone, and apart from that, I check my phone when I have time, and it's not something that I'm the slave to. So that was really big for me as well. But they're the three main focuses that I really look at, and it's a real you really have to what's the word? Try really hard to be present. It's so easy to get distracted, especially with young kids, and actually being a friend, not just a parent. So, there's one thing to parent your child or your children. There's another thing to actually play with your children as well. So, so it's really important to actually get down on your hands and knees and be a part of their world as well, which is great.
Your wife, Andy, is also an owner of KX Pilates. How has working together impacted on your relationship? And what advice do you have for couples who want to go into business together?
Yeah, great question. So Andy was by my side from the very beginning. We actually met a month after I started KX Pilates in 2010. She was in corporate automotive marketing and systems IT sort of background. And it wasn't until 2013. She was helping me a lot behind the scenes, but it wasn't until I started franchising, and she also saw that the business was growing and probably needed her help, because I am so far away from processes and systems in my specialties. So she came in and really systemized the whole business, which is so important in franchising. So she was incredibly important in those years to get the business going in the franchise sense. And then she was marketing manager for years as well. I think, look, we have had that many disagreements in business, especially in the early years when we worked alongside of each other. One, because our relationship and our personal lives are extremely equal. And that's very hard to replicate in the business world, especially when the founder's the husband. And back then it was still my business. Obviously, it's our business now, 14 years later. But knowing your own roles is extremely important. So I would say we started working really well when I probably stepped away of being her boss, and we started looking at the business as it is now ours, but what is your strengths and what are your weaknesses? What are your specialties? Great. You go and handle that side of the business, and I'll 100% trust that you'll do that, and just come and tell me about it, not necessarily come and ask for my advice or get sign off for it. And I'll go and do my thing. So she's never questioned, and that's the same thing even with home. So like the business worlds, probably the higher level strategy, what country we're going to go into next, all these sort of big decisions that we make. Yes, she gets, we talk about it, but at the end of the day, that's my decision at the end of the day. But in terms of marketing systems, the stuff that she's still involved in, her studio, perfect example, I completely stay away from it. So that's, I think that's just having that 100% trust and understanding in her ability and my ability, and having that mutual kind of respect for each other as well is really important.
Are you teaching at the moment?
No, I stopped teaching in 2014 because Andy actually invested in the brand when we moved to Sydney. And we opened the first flagship studio in Sydney. That was her chance to go, right, I'm investing. I'm not just going to be your wife anymore. My money's on the line. Let's do it. So I helped her in the first 6 weeks while her trainers were getting trained up. I stopped teaching actual shift work then, and I'd just do like founders classes. And if a new studio was opening up in a state or a country, I'd go in and kind of razz the clients up. This year, though, when she first opened KX Pilates in Noosa, I did jump back in for her for 3 months. I only taught a couple of classes a week, which was fantastic to get back in the studio. I love client interaction. But I mean, in the early days, I was teaching 40 to 50 hour classes a week. I was in London 3 years prior teaching similar sort of stuff. So I think my father always used to tell an old friend of mine who used to talk a lot, you've got so many words in your life until that expires. I think he was telling him to just quieten down a little bit. In my world, I think, for me anyway, there's only so many classes you can teach in life, and then you're kind of done. And that came from a personal training background as well. So, one class here and there, which I did a couple of classes a week. If you ask me to teach 5 classes in a row now, I'll probably want to, go and jump off something. So, but in saying that, I love still going into the studio. I love still speaking to the clients. It's well known in this studio as well that I'm the founder here, which is great. So it's just really nice to get that sort of community feel and to know the clients, which I really, really enjoy. Like that's my specialty. Relationships are my thing. But teaching classes these days are not. And I was never super, super passionate about it. Like I loved training clients. I loved them walking out of the studio with a huge smile on their face, knowing that, I was always known for pretty hard and difficult classes. But my passion was never in like the education. So training trainers was never a passion of mine. That's why I hired our head of training, Amy Skinner. I grabbed her from the UK when she came out 14 years ago, and she's still by our side. So, you pay people who are passionate in their areas and their fields to do the role better than you.
KX have a custom reformer built by Balanced Body. What's so unique about these reformers?
Yeah, so the KX Former came about 2016. So I was at the Singapore Licensing and Franchise Expo a few times, and I had multiple investors coming up. We had big posters in the background of our current equipment at that time. And they were like, are these yours? Do you have trademarks on them, patents, et cetera, et cetera? And we customized them slightly back then, but very, 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 very small customizations that anyone could really do themselves too or copy. So I always knew that for us to grow, because they were like, well, in Asia, Southeast Asia, you need your own equipment. You're going to get copied straight away. And at the same time, we had a lot of independent studios opening up, mostly our trainers who couldn't buy a franchise in the areas that they wanted to in Melbourne or Sydney. So they'll just go and open up their own independents, because obviously location's key, where people want to work, where they live, etc. And they will we'll call them KX Copycat Studios. So under a different brand name, they taught the exact same thing, exact same campaigns, exact same intro offers, exact same price packs. Like everything was the same except the name on the door, pretty much. So of course we do pride ourselves on our education in KX, and the specific education that trainers go through for their 7-week, 100-hour academy. But I knew that the equipment was really, really special to get right, in terms of they couldn't go anywhere else to have it. So the journey started. I originally went to Balanced Body. Being the number 1 manufacturer in the world, we had 30 studios at the time. They kind of laughed. They're like, the amount of time that it would take for us to stop production just to slot yours in to start again would be losing money. So it's a hard no. And then so I went down the Chinese manufacturing route for a few years. Ended up having had 3 models made. 93 were put into studios in my company studios in Melbourne. And they were good, but they weren't exceptional. And Balanced Body equipment is very, very good already. So I just knew that I didn't want to continue down that path unless they were like super exceptional. I always talk about, like, we had a Mercedes, I wanted to put a Porsche in our studios. And it wasn't until my joint venture of China came about and the growth that China wanted to hit, the targets they wanted to hit before COVID came along, that my Chinese manufacturer actually couldn't meet the demand that they were asking for. So we went back to Balanced Body. And that they were like, you're probably going outside of Australia. You're soon going to be an international brand. Okay, we can start talking to you now, because it's going to be a bit more than a couple of machines. And then that was a great thing about COVID. Obviously, it stopped the studios and the day-to-day. My wife, Andy, was very, very involved in the COVID because of the systems and the IT and all this sort of stuff that we had to do for online. I had, apart from looking after our kids, a lot of time on my hands. So then that went to developing the Balanced Body KX Former, which it's a hybrid model of one of their machines, the A2, but it has handles and a top-end platform that just enable us to bring more variety to the KX repertoire, so more exercises can be performed. because KX is a very intense workout with limited rest, it enables the intensity to be lifted because we can keep the same spring tension, but then go up to the top end of the platform and do multiple other exercises straight off the back of how we normally would use the machine. And lastly, exclusivity. So we're really proud because Balance Body is a 70-year-old brand, and we are the first company in its existence to do an exclusive deal with them. They're very, very litigious in the world in terms of people copying their stuff as well. So we have them as our backer if anyone tried to back them. But in saying that, you can't buy a KX former off them. It's specifically in KX Pilates studios. We hold security in our studios, so if the studio ever shut down or closed to move or whatever, then they've got to sell back to head office. So it holds the exclusivity and the IP in the company now, which is fantastic. And it looks incredible. I mean, it was the world of Instagram as well. And we had these dark, black, old Balance Body machines, now light, bright, white. It's really nice. So yeah, it worked out really well. And our studios, I think we're at 95% full of our studios. So obviously we had a transition period of a couple of years. So we're almost there, which is fantastic.
What's the biggest misconceptions you see about Pilates?
Is it like yoga? First one. Let's look at the last 14 years of KX existence. We started in 2010 when there was a Pilates studio bolted onto every physiotherapy clinic in Australia. That's what Pilates was. It was clinical Pilates. They did one-on-one or small group, 6 people. And that was really because they found that to elongate their client's lifespan by another 10 weeks minimum, they had a Pilates studio, then they could go from physiotherapy to Pilates, which is fantastic for rehabilitation purposes. But exercise Pilates was just not there. Athletic Pilates or high intensity or dynamic Pilates, whatever you want to call it, wasn't there. Reformer Pilates wasn't there. So traditionalists thought of the reformer as an intermediate to advanced apparatus to use. So you always started on the floor, which is why in every big box gym there was floor Pilates. Floor Pilates is quite boring. You walk out of, after a couple of weeks, you walk out going, I didn't really feel like I had a workout then because it's still that generic sort of level. So there were a couple of brands like our competitor Studio Pilates. That's a more generic reformer. They'd been around for a couple of years prior to us. But again, they taught generic reformer. So it was for anyone coming in. The intensity like KX wasn't there. The sequencing in our repertoire wasn't there. They teach off screens. So again, very different to us when you'll never see a screen in KX Pilates. The instructor, it's an instructor-led class. So there's many different things about the world of Pilates, which we live in at the moment. But the awareness is the big thing because the Pilates world is very black and white. So you're either doing it right, like for the classical traditionalists, you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, and there's nothing in the middle, which is probably why we gained popularity when I was in London teaching dynamic Pilates there, because it started in America and London was kind of there with Joseph Pilates back in the day. And it was a very elite, very illustrious world. And if you were doing it wrong, then, how dare you sort of thing. So we were the rebellious ones that were grabbing an apparatus, putting it into a fitness environment, and people loved it. So I used to laugh at it. It probably worked really well with my personality too, because I was always doing things outside of the norm. I challenged the box all the time, thinking outside of it. So that's why it really worked for us. So awareness is still number one. I think we did, the marketing team last year did research. I think only 17% of the population know what reformer Pilates is, which is just crazy. So, but I mean, it's the world that I live in. So awareness is still number one, but I think it's slowly getting in there. I think it's never been as popular as it is today. The whole deal with low impact but high intensity is huge because, you look at all of your other brands like the F45s of the world or the CrossFits, that sort of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big CrossFitter myself, but it's very, very easy to get it wrong, get injured, or as we age as well, it's just not the right thing for our body, or that people get obsessed with the sport, so they do it 6 days a week when your body should really be only doing it 3 days a week. So there's a lot of different things there. So Pilates is definitely still on the up, and it's for all different levels, which is incredible, all different age groups, which is incredible. But yeah, no, that low impact, high intensity is what's really important. Yeah, and also probably another one is that it's for women only. which is, KX is still sitting at like 75 to 80% female clientele, but it's so good for guys. It's incredible for mobility, especially in our hips, which is terrible because of all the, fast and quick sports we play, and just plus because guys are just so bad at flexibility versus our lady friends. But in saying that, it does attract the right guys as well. So like the big, giants in the gyms that are grunting, they're not really welcome in our studios. But in saying that, it's fantastic for everyone. That's what's so good about it. And that's what's so good. There's so many other brands coming now in Pilates that are men focused, male focused. So like Strong, very much a both sex focus, throwing the rower in there. One of my franchise partners who sold out, has opened platform in Adelaide, again, very much male focused too. Got heavier weights in his reformer classes. So it's just great that there's so many different options for people.
You recently opened up applications for a $20,000 travel grant to support one lucky entrepreneur. What was the response like?
It was incredible. So a part of the book launch, which my incredible PR company, we come up with the idea of a travel grant, Australia's first ever entrepreneurial travel grant, which really touched me because I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to travel when I was younger, and travel changed my life and shaped me into the person who I was. And I found the style of dynamic Pilates over in London, which is why KX Pilates exists. But not everyone has that opportunity. So for us to be now in a position, and also I looked at the book, and the book was, talking about the journey, the highs and lows. It was hitting the young entrepreneur and the startup. It was also, there's a chapter on franchising in there about, is your business franchisable? What to look for if you want to join a franchise, all the things to look for if you want to become a franchisor as well. So things that I've learned along the way, because I get a lot of questions of franchising, but I couldn't really target people with just an idea that wanted to bring it to life and lift it off the ground. So I thought this was an incredible opportunity to give a savvy up-and-coming entrepreneur in Australia $20,000 to travel, go and see the world, go and look at how else people are doing things on the other side of the world, or even close by in Asia. And it was great. We had under 100 applications, and it was really good looking through them as well. I had such an incredible couple of weeks going through the applications, and oh my God, there are so many incredible humans who are upcoming in the next generation. And I'd say two things stood out. One was starting businesses that are going to save our planet, and starting businesses to change people's lives. And they were the two main focus points. There was none really going, hey, I've got this product, I'm going to make $1 million from it, can you please help me? It was really the purpose behind these ideas were really, really good. Obviously, I had to pick one that suited, because it was also came with a 12-month mentorship from myself and my team. So I had to look at one where I could also give back as much as possible, not only myself and my background, but my connections in my business groups and how I could really pull in. So, no, it was fantastic. I unfortunately can't tell you the idea that we did select, but Brianna Dalgleish, she's from New South Wales. She's a great woman. She's a physiotherapist by trade, as is her husband. So there's some really cool ideas coming out, and we'll see where it takes us. So yeah, it was a really, really good campaign. It's great.
Does your business look different now to how you imagined it would grow when you first started?
100%. I still remember when I always knew I was going to go down the franchising path. In 2013, my lawyer at the time doing my documentation, we were trying to map out, I sold territories back then because we just didn't think that there would be many studios around. Like we mapped out, I think 9 or 11 in Melbourne. We've got 38 now. So the growth has been incredible. I never thought that boutique fitness would be as popular. But the wave of F45, BFT, those sort of brands really lifted because they started in 2013, a couple of years after us, but they paved the way for people to spend money on their fitness. So I was dealing with people in the 24/7 gym world going, why am I going to come and spend $30 with you for one class when I can, for $12, go and join the local Snap? or jets. So that was my problem for 3 years. But as soon as these big guys came in, again, completely different to us, it worked well for us because people overtrained, injured themselves, and then came to KX, which was good. But it was also great because they lifted. So $60, $70 a week for fitness, that's 3 classes, even 4 classes on a certain type of pack at KX, which is fantastic. So, and also it was great because unlike those brands that's membership based, you kind of got to do that, nothing else. We were never membership based, so it was always about you can do Pilates once a week to benefit you if you're an athlete, or something else to add to your normal exercise regime, or you can be a solid KXer doing 6 times a week, which we have as well. So there's something for everyone, and it improves everyone's life, and that's our purpose, KX, to change lives for the better, and it works really well.
Where do you hope you see yourself in 5 years?
So 5 years time, we are currently, as we speak, in 6 countries. So we're still obviously dominant in Australia. We just opened our 100th and 101st studio like 2 weeks ago, which was a huge milestone. And we've got about 12 studios across New Zealand, Taiwan, Indonesia, Singapore, and China. They're all in their infancy concept stages, just getting their brands right before they start franchising as well. And COVID affected their growth substantially. So they're all just coming out, which is great. So I think in 5 years' time, we would be expected to then be hitting the other Western speaking countries of America, Canada, the UK, Ireland, those sort of places. We've done our hard work in Southeast Asia, which a lot of brands try and stay away from. It's very, very hard hitting the different cultures, the different laws. Obviously, the language barrier has been difficult too. Luckily, we've got some amazing trainers who speak Mandarin and a few others, which is really good. But we found some really good partners there. So that's where we'll be internationally. I see ourselves. I see education coming in to play a real big part. So at the moment, we train our trainers up, but just say if you wanted to become a Pilates instructor, we would then handball you to a third party who we work closely with to get you to the stage. Then we can teach you the KX method. But there is an end-to-end opportunity there that we could really mold someone from the start and teach them. But obviously that's a completely different business, but one which we either we will acquire or work really closely with to move that up. So I see that happening as well. Our power range is going really well. So our client power range, which is always something that we wanted just to tick the box with. So that's where we are. So at 112 studios, our goal is 500 globally, but in terms of timeframes, we might hit that in 3 to 5 years. But if it takes longer, it takes longer. That's the beautiful thing about being independent, family run. Selena has her numbers to hit, but in saying that, there's no pressure that she's going to get fired if she doesn't, because we live a very, very comfortable life. We pay her good money to run the business, but we are very, very happy with where we are. Obviously, we moved up to the Sunshine Coast from Melbourne 2 years ago. So I'm just enjoying family life. I've got my daughter for the next 3 years before she goes to school. So yeah, but it's a nice place to be.
What's the best investment you've made in your business or in yourself?
In myself would be, I joined Entrepreneurial Organization in 2014. So I've been a member for nearly 10 years now. And it has been by far the best investment for me personally, because we look at all areas of your life. So relationships, personal, business, the business learnings that I've got out of it, the mentorship I've got out of it, hands down worth every cent I've spent with that organization.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I was very lucky enough to go to Las Vegas when I was 18 in a failed nutrition company. Well, the company wasn't failed. I ended up failing at it because I hated selling products. But I saw the late Jim Rohn speak, and he told me, care more about your customers than you do from the money you make from them, and you will be successful. And I've thought about that quote nearly every day of my life since.
Business milestone that made you proud?
100 studios internationally was hit with my wife opening KX Noosa in February this year, which was pretty special. Not only being my wife, but also I think it just shows our passion for the brand that a franchisor can go back in the trenches and open up a studio because she just loves studio life and becoming, a studio owner again, which is cool.
One daily habit that you recommend?
Exercise. Without exercise flicks the switch in my head. I eat clean. I'm more confident. I respect myself a hell of a lot more. It's a flow-on effect to success for me.
Do you have a favorite recovery action, tool, or practice?
I do like hot cold therapy. I don't do it enough, but I do like infrareds, ice baths, and then heated spas as well. I even threw in the recovery boots last week. That was pretty cool too. So you've got to give your body back what you take from it sometimes.
How do you cope with stress or manage your mental health?
So mental health for me is definitely managed through exercise as well, and sleep. It's really important that I get enough sleep every night, and also to stay not away from alcohol, but you need to be disciplined with it. So again, looking back in my life, the most successful times of my life, I was drinking the least amount, partying the least amount, and exercising the most, and sleeping the best. So you got to do what works for you.
Thank you for being open and honest and being you, and sharing some of your time with me. I appreciate it. What's new in fitness? The Australian fitness industry news and commercial gym equipment suppliers website designed to provide fitness industry professionals with knowledge and information to make better informed business decisions.